failure is like a bestie that I use as a reference point of what did I do wrong. See, the actuarial control cycle is one of the most powerful things I've come across in my learning.
Yeah.
And that cycle says you look at the environment, you look at what the problem is, you find a solution. You check if that solution is actually a solution by monitoring that experience. And then if it's not, you come up with a new solution and go back to square one. That's life. Failure is just an indicator that you missed something. There's something in your knowledge or in how you executed that didn't go right. It doesn't mean it's not painful. It's sometimes extremely painful. Sometimes so crushing in terms of your spirit and your drive that you don't want to get up again. But even then, why are you feeling that way? Because it's very important to you. So if we can investigate those emotions and understand why we're feeling in that way, we can then use them as a trampoline to get to that success. So failure right now is a bestie in terms of the fact that I don't want you, I don't like you, but it's the learning.
You are in for a treat.
Welcome to the Living in Fullness podcast with Naki.
Hi everybody, welcome to another amazing episode of the Living in Fullness podcast. I am your lovely host, Naki Hlomayi, and I'm excited to be here today. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for consistently subscribing, liking, sharing, and being a part of this amazing family. If it's your first time here, please do subscribe, like, and share, and tell more people about us. I'm excited about my guest today, guys. So I'm really excited because she is an amazing Black woman, successful Black lady, doing a lot of things that I cannot mention all of it in one, but I can tell you that she's an actuary. And of course, we expect actuaries to just be people that are behind the desk to calculating and stuff, but she is also a creative. So when you see her, you'll see why I'm saying she's a creative. I have with me the amazing, beautiful, gorgeous Memory Zimba.
Oh yes, I own. I step into that. Thank you. It's so beautiful to be here. I'm actually really excited. This is my first podcast.
Is it?
So that it's an accountant who brought me here means it's amazing. It means you're also tapping into your creative side.
I'm trying to.
Which means you're going to be a full and whole person, which is why I love the title of your podcast, Living in Fullness. It's so appropriate for me at the moment. So I'm really excited to be here. It's a first of many things.
Yes, a first of many. But actually, tell me why you resonate with the title.
I resonate with the title because I think, like you touched on in terms of your introduction, about the fact that I might be an actuary, but I'm doing a lot of other things. As human beings, we're not one thing. There's a wholeness to us. We're like, as Shrek said, an onion with different layers. But it's all the layers put together that make you who you are. We as human beings tend to focus on one element. So in my case, for majority of my life, I focused on the academics, the qualifying, becoming an actuary, neglecting my creative side, neglecting the fact that I love hiking, I love play. Play is so important. But again, because you're grown up, oh no, you're not playing anymore. So it's those kind of things that I'm saying, actually, to live in your fullness, you have to be whole. And to be whole, you need to feed all the various elements that make you a whole you. A whole Memory Zimba, I like to say, a whole me, a whole Memory Zimba.
A whole you. I mean, it's actually holistic growth, right? Holistic wellness is touching every area of your life. And I always say that there's a season for everything. Like, you're not going to be able to do everything you want in every season, but you sort of have to always find that balance. And balance doesn't always mean everything is at par, right? And I think that's what you do, and you do it so well. So before we get in, were you about to say something?
Please go ahead.
No, say what you're about to say.
No, I'm following your flow because this is your stage. I'm a guest at your stage. So I'm trying to talk less.
No, please do talk. People want to learn a lot from you.
They have plenty of time, but I'm taking your guidance, and I want to take your guidance because I think for me as well, it's tapping into your strength because sitting here on a mic is something I probably should already be doing, but I'm not. In which case, there's opportunity for me to learn. It's particularly exciting for me because one of the things I learned about myself on the Insurance Apprentice is that I'm actually a great public speaker. Watching you speak, I'm like, gosh, this goes flowing. But then again, that's the part that I want us to touch on. The fact that when you see somebody else do it, you think they're amazing. But when it comes to somebody acknowledging your amazingness for the same thing, you're like, ooh, I'm just.
I agree.
Precisely.
All right. Before we get into the episode, we're going to do some icebreakers.
Ooh,
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. So we want to get to know you a bit. It's just some light icebreakers. It's not hectic.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a tea or coffee person?
I'm definitely a coffee person. I'm an aspiring tea person.
I don't even like hot beverages, so I love it for you. Sunsets or sunrise?
Oh, freaking hell. Oh, that's difficult. Sunset, let me not lie. I'm not a morning person. The sunrises I do catch are beautiful, but sunsets means that I can be myself, wake up and then not rush and be tired and just enjoy what God has created, I guess. Yeah. That's the sunsets.
I agree with you. I definitely know I'll always make it for sunsets, never for sunrise, because I'm not an early person at all. I love taking my time in bed.
Precisely.
Okay, work from home or from the office?
Whew, that's a tricky one. At the moment, I'm undecided. I think the lockdown made me understand how much more fruitful I was working from home, because you cut a lot of time in terms of travel. But I'm not also a natural routine person. So part of the advantage of going to the office is that you actually wake up. You have to now put on your, I'm going into the world warrior face in terms of your makeup, which is what I see my makeup as. You get to see your eyes. You get to really see yourself before you step out into the world. And I think going to the office forces me to do that. I get to wear my clothes.
I love it.
I get to wear my clothes. Whereas if I'm at home, I'm not going to make a lot of effort. I want to be comfortable. Yeah. So part of going to the office, I think it's the preparation of it, but also the fact that you are then also interacting with other people, and collaboration is the new competition. And as much as we might be knowledgeable in a lot of things, we don't think the same way. So having that balance of other people's ways of thinking means you're strengthening yourself in terms of being able to leverage off of other people's strengths. Yeah. So that's, I think, is where I'm undecided at the moment. I think there are days when you should work from home because you'll be more fruitful. Yeah. But if you can, I think human interactions, for the most part, I think can only make you a better person and stronger at whatever it is that you are pursuing.
I love it. Which brings me to my next one. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Sure.
I'm going to tell you what I thought.
A lot of people think I'm an extrovert. I identify as an introvert, but in actuality, I'm ambivert. So I think nobody's fully only one thing. Again, that wholeness that we touched on at the beginning. So I think I'm an ambivert. But because I put so much energy in everything I do need that quiet time for myself. That quiet time with my space. Of course, my partner is in that space. Yeah. When he's there, it doesn't feel like there's somebody else. Yeah. So I do need that quiet time to just rejuvenate. What did you think I was?
Extrovert.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, because I can put myself so out there, and I think it's a function of the fact that one of the challenges I faced that was not very easy for me to overcome was swimming. And that was part and parcel of the fact that when I started swimming, it was my friend pushed me into the pool. And I hated it and I feared it. Yeah. But actually I realized that her pushing me into the pool didn't give me a chance to talk myself out of it.
Yeah.
So if you just go, and then when you're going, you have decided you're going, so you're going to give it your all, you're going to look like a person who's out there. But in my inside space, in my quiet, I go on holidays by myself.
And you enjoy it.
And I enjoy it. I did a 25-day Southeast Asia trip. And it was amazing. And even now, and the beauty of being able to travel on your own is that you can literally wake up, look at what buses are going where if you don't want to fly, and then take your bag and go.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
It gives you time to think, because I think as much as people are great, it's very easy to not be able to know which is your voice and which are your thoughts.
I agree.
So that alone time allows you to really connect to your authentic self and really ask some questions about, really, is this is this me?
Yeah, like, is this really what I want to do?
Yes. Is this me? Is this me? and you get in touch with your feelings, because feelings are an amazing indicator of what's happening, you know, and a lot of the time we don't even touch base with our emotions to understand, okay, in this situation, what's going on? We more pay attention to the body only, but the mind and the feelings and the emotions and the spirit also need to be tapped into. And I think it's only when you're alone that you can actually fully be able to immerse yourself in the selfness of who you are.
I love it. You're touching a lot on the values of this podcast. And I'm like, we brought the right person. We're in for a treat. So, you know, you spoke about how sometimes you actually, because your mind is so busy, you don't get to know who you are or what you actually like, right? And I think for me, it's more because we're quite busy. Like, you're an actuary, I'm a chartered accountant. I barely have time for myself. Like, when I'm not working, I'm doing this. When I'm not doing this, I'm tapping into my creative self. But what I like about the creative side is I don't feel like I'm working.
Exactly.
I really feel like it's a part of me, and I enjoy it. It feels like my free time. You know, then when I go to the office, it feels like, okay, now I'm working. So yeah. Then the last question I had for you, are you an indoors and outdoors person?
Definitely an outdoors person.
Yeah.
Definitely an outdoors person. I don't hike as much of late, but one of the great things about living in Gauteng, in Joburg in particular, is that there's so many hiking trails within an hour's drive. And when you are, like you said, when you're so busy, it's very difficult to find time to appreciate where you are.
Exactly.
Because you can be so busy chasing that you don't even know that you've achieved some of the goals you're chasing, and you keep chasing. But when you step out in nature, and I must say, whenever I'm thinking of taking anybody for a hike, and I hope you join us on one of these, Cradle Moon is one of my favorite hiking spots, because there's so much scope for the imagination.
Yeah.
So whether it's from a work perspective that you're trying to problem solve something, or whether it's from a creative side, the outdoors, and because there's so many different landscapes out there, there's so much scope for the imagination, and so much to feed the soul. And so much to appreciate about the fact that, oh my gosh, God, you have created all of this, and then you saw it fit to create me.
I know.
I must have a purpose in this life. It just reminds you to say, actually, irrespective of what's going on, because sometimes life can just, adulting can just. So it's my outdoor time that really says, actually, I'm doing great. I woke up this morning. Forget those tick boxes. I woke up this morning. I've got good health. I've got a sound mind, and I've got a sound body, and I'm able to step out in nature and just be. Outdoors does that for me.
I love it. I love it, guys. So let's get into the episode now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Tell us about yourself. So for people that don't know who Memory Zimba is, who is Memory? What do you do? Who are you?
Who is Memory? Memory is a lot of things. But to start with, I'm a human being. I think one of the things I want to make very clear is that I am no more, and we have different talents, right? God has blessed us with different talents. That's why when we show up in the world, we might show up differently. And that's a brilliant thing. That's an amazing thing. So I suppose Memory is a creative to begin with. And the most exciting part about the stage of life that I'm in is that you mentioned to say, when you're at the workplace, that's work. And then when you're being creative, that's creative. I realized that actually part of the reason why the journey was so exciting, as much as it was difficult in terms of qualifying, is that there's a lot of scope for creativity even in the workplace. But because the rules are so defined, and they're so the structure is such that the education system makes you think that work is supposed to be like this. You're not supposed to apply your creativity. 1 + 1 can only equal to 2. You can miss out on some of that. So the fact that I can be a creative as an actuary, I can be a problem solver as a designer, I can be a technical person as somebody hiking, because in your stepping, there's technique required in there. So Memory Zimba is a person who is looking to be happy. And happiness means feeding the various elements of my passions, of my spirit, of my physical self, of my consciousness. Happiness. Also healthy. When you are healthy, You can do
You
anything.
can do a lot.
You
Yeah.
can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if there are things you're still not having ticked off that box, you can still do them. If there are things you're not sure of, you can come and encounter you,
Yeah.
get inspired and set your next goal, you know. So health. And then finally, wealth. Because we live in a world where money actually gets you things.
Yeah.
It might not be able to buy you happiness necessarily, but it's an enabler of that happiness.
I agree.
So Memory is a fun-loving creative who loves the fact that she's been gifted with the ability to do mathematics. And I say mathematics in particular because all other disciplines can be condensed into mathematics. And if anything can be reduced to a mathematical equation, oh my gosh, I can solve it. When I discovered the maths behind makeup, I'm like, ooh. Done.
That's the actuary side
Done.
of you.
Exactly. And that actuary side of me is not different from the creative side. It's one and the same person.
So you basically managed to merge your actuarial, qualities into your creative side. Because I always used to look at, because my husband, being an actuary as well, I think he's more of a geek. Like he has his creativity is a little less. So I always used to see actuaries as, okay, they just love being in the office. They love cracking numbers and that's it. So when I met I'm like, oh, this is a different type of an actuary. So that's why
People say that.
very different. And that's why I'm interested in knowing why, maybe for people that don't even know, what's an actuary? What do they do? What do you guys do?
We work with a lot of numbers, like you have said, but I must say my favorite definition of an actuary is a business person who knows mathematics. This is a definition I got from Sandile Mbiri, who himself is an entrepreneur. So right now I'm also a businesswoman. So I've got Simply Memoir fashion boutique and studio. And
she's wearing all her stuff, by the way.
Thank you. Being
Beautiful.
Heritage Month, the colors that make Africa what it is, the brightness, the vibrancy, I'm representing, of course.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So an actuary for me is a business person who knows mathematics. I was privileged to participate in the Actuaries in the Making program. We had 3 students, 2 from UCT, 1 from Wits University, work on a business called Madam Waste. It's a waste to energy business. And I'm so excited that I actually went to the launch at the Agricultural Research Center where we looked at building a pitch deck and validating some of the research she has already done. The business is owned by Dr. Gamochirai Mutezo. So she is saying, what are we doing with our waste? If we look at the Santon acre, all those office buildings, all that organic waste coming out of those buildings, what are we doing with it? It's going to landfills that are already full. But she's saying, no, give it to me. I love this deliciousness, this delicious waste. I'm going to turn it into compost and I'm going to turn it into biogas. And for us as actuaries to be able to say, okay, how do we make this happen? Because when we do that, what do? We're creating jobs. The guys that are on the streets pushing their trolleys of recyclables, now we give them a structure, somewhere to take their things to. We also show them how they can become business people.
Wow.
And from an African perspective, Africa can only fully develop if you and I see this talent that we've been given as a business opportunity that will enable us to employ people who will be able to feed families, send people to school. My parents were the first in their families to go over grade 9. So the education part, as much as it's what I'm known for, the stronger part, that is not the core of who I am. The core of who I am is, this is a gift I've been given. This is a talent I've been given. How do I utilize that to then make a contribution to society? And you know what? If I can do that, then they'll leave me alone and let me play. In which case it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So an actuary is exactly that type of a person. We problem solve. We use a lot of maths in terms of, is the pricing right? For somebody who does not need us to collect the waste. So somebody who's going to bring the waste to us because they already have trucks on the road. What is that going to cost? We get to look at that. We get to look at the sustainability in terms of profitability of that business. We get to do that. But at the same time, as we're doing that, we're creating jobs. A lot of people will say to their children, go to school, get an education, which means university.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Vets is an amazing institution, and I'm so grateful for the fact that they skilled me with the technical. And I saw flames there.
We also flames.
And I think that's the one thing that I think as defines successful people we don't talk enough of. The fact that this week was a really tough week for me. I'm smiling now, I'm talking to you. But even getting here, I came from the dentist. One side of my mouth has been numb. But I'm smiling and I'm showing up, which can make people think this girl's everyday life is like that. It's not like that. It's really not like that. So, the academic side, yes, and some of us are talented to go to those universities and be able to come out of that with a degree. But there are those of us who are going to technicons. There are those of us who can build the furniture that we're sitting on, the desks. How do we collaborate and work as a whole unit so that we can advance ourselves?
And I agree.
That's the fun of the space or the stage of my life where I'm in, that I'm realizing to say these actuarial technical skills can then work with people who are going to a technicon. These people who are not even going into the formal education structures for many, many reasons. Some of them most of them out of their control. If we can collectively work together and provide opportunities for each layer of talent, then even as actuaries, because we know how to structure things, we can add value there. So an actuary is a powerhouse that has so many skills in terms of economics, in terms of the maths element, in terms of knowing finances, accounting. Our educational structure is so robust that it's the perfect business machine. But again, because academia or university or the current educational structure is in such a way that it's built to produce an employee, to transition to an employer or a business owner, somebody who can create a business. That's the exciting part for me right now. And I'm so excited that the University of Johannesburg has said, oh, Memory, we see you. Come be a research. Can you do some research for us? In the scope of you being yourself, which is really exciting. And the business journey for me is really exciting because I get to sharpen my skills. I get to address some of the criticisms or some of the gaps in terms of the academic side, where you get to understand business. In my role, in my business, I must sell. That's very different from working, as you've put it, in an office in front of a computer. But if I can figure out how the selling happens optimally, then when I'm working in the back office, I'm enabling the salespeople.
I agree.
So the value chain in terms of where you can play as an actuary is open, and there's so many actuaries working in wider fields and doing lots of amazing things. I love that climate change is a big focus point at the moment. And I recently attended the Climate Change Actuarial Society of South Africa seminar, and that was amazing. And as much as we were wanting to advance business, because in terms of how the economy is doing, if we can empower these small businesses and volunteer our skills to help them. And it's not a lot of effort on our part. Then they advance. And in this case, she's doing her part, Madam Waste, in terms of, from a climate change perspective, making sure that we are recycling as much as possible, reducing the emissions that we're putting into the atmosphere. The technical side coming in and saying we're working on the business side and we're actually making an impact. That for me is what an actuary is. Incredible. The fact that you guys know us in insurance industry, in pensions, in banking.
That's where we know you, hey?
That's where you know us. But we are whole human beings. And even in terms of our personal interests, there's so many actuaries who really want to make an impact. And if I can facilitate that, because I'm researching how we can effectively collaborate with other disciplines, then hey, I win.
I see you.
It's a win-win.
I love it. Incredible. I really love, I think I've told you this. The first time I met you, I was like, I remember listening to you at an ASABA, meeting. And I was like, oh, that lady is such a powerhouse. At that time, I think I was still dating my husband. We were not married. I think it was 2018. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that girl is such a powerhouse. What's her name? And he's like, oh, she's Zambian. Her name is Memory Zimba. I'm like, okay. And that time I didn't have a podcast. I kept that name in my head. And when I had a podcast, I was like, I need to think of when I'm going to invite you. And for me, I'm very intentional about the timing as well.
Yes.
And I'm very sure that whenever I do something, it's time.
Yes.
Right. So I was like, okay, I'm going to think about when to invite her. And then I was so happy when we met again after, like, I saw you after a long time and I was telling you all this and we're like, let's do this. So I'm really excited. And now I'm actually curious to know, is this how you've been, this confident lady, from your childhood? What was your childhood like? Or what are some of the things that have shaped the memory that we see today?
It's so interesting that we're talking about confidence because maybe last week we were talking about imposter syndrome, and if there's a correlation between imposter syndrome and confidence, and the confident person that people get to see is an aspect of me. The time that you probably watched me deliver that, I was nervous as heck because I'm like, I hate public speaking because of the various things I'm involved in. I have to speak on some point, but I've not owned that. And that's exactly it. We don't define success for ourselves. We wait for people to tell us we're successful so that we can acknowledge our success. And that's what's impressive about what you've just said. You set a goal for yourself. You kept in mind that this is somebody who I can have a conversation with, a conversation that you want to share with the world, because as you learn, you want others to learn with you. But more importantly, as you're learning, you're also teaching, which is amazing about this interaction that we're having. You're sharing your experience in terms of some of the things you have learned, and you're asking for my perspective in terms of what I have learned. I'm a tomboy. I know I don't appear to be with the nails, the makeups, the what, but I'm a tomboy. I come from a tribe that is actually matriarchal. So maybe that's why I present with such a lot of confidence, because the women in my life have just been, if you've got legs, you've got hands. What are you waiting for? Who are you waiting for to pick that thing for you? Why? You don't have strength. Okay, you don't have enough strength. Go to gym, build that muscle so you can lift that thing for yourself. So my childhood was very much village. I was actually born in the village. My formative years were in the village, watching my grandmother and my aunts do their thing. Grade 1, I was number last, because for me, at break time, it was time to go play with my friends. I was forced to be in school. I didn't want to be in school, but then you advance and then you move to the next city where education is a big thing and your marks matter and being in the top 10 is a thing. So I'm like,
can't be last anymore.
Okay. So it means I can do that. Let's give it a bash. And it worked, and I gave it a bash. But in summary, it's the adventure of, we're here. What can we explore here? And then in the village, there's the outdoors, there's going looking for mushrooms, mopani worms. That was the childhood. There was a lot of playtime. There was a lot of hiking, going here, going there. That's why a lot of people, when they see me on the weekend, I'm usually dressed like this, because the way I'm dressed, if I need to run, I can run. If I need to walk, I can walk. If I need to hike, I can hike. I'm on the go. I'm on the move, going towards something. It's about then figuring out where I want to go, how much effort I'm going to put in, and am I willing to suffer through whatever it is. And I think in terms of my childhood, that was it. It was getting a new piece of information, working with it, seeing what I can do with it, and then going with it. From Zambia, we moved to South Africa. So Zambian born, South African bred. So I'm proudly Zambian South African. And a lot of this heritage that I'm wearing today, in terms of the beadwork, is authentically South African. This is Ankara, which I've known from a Zambian perspective. But the fact that even as a grown-up now, I have taken the best of both worlds to say, these are the things that I want to internalize and take for myself. It's a function of the fact that if opportunities are out there, I take them, and I've always done that. But I think because I'm an adventurer, everything seemed to be an adventure. There was a lot of perfectionism, which I still have. And I think you also have the same qualities. And that's why even when you have arrived, you don't acknowledge, because you've got so many other goals you've set for yourself that you're chasing. So I think my childhood was very much like my present. But I must say that from high school to university and the early formative stages, it was a lot of striving for things. Whereas this part of my life, and I hope you join me in terms of this journey, is about stepping into your own.
Love it. I love it. Doesn't she need her own platform? I'm just like, you know what? I'm taking my brain. I'm going to continue.
I've got my platform. I'm glad to be on your platform because, again, collaboration is a new competition.
Yeah.
If our collective strength are put together, we can only be stronger.
But do you have a podcast?
I don't have a podcast.
You would like, but you speak, right?
I do speak. And I hope more corporates are going to invite me, not just from an actuarial perspective, but please invite me for your actuarial dinners. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I was so fortunate to be invited by ASABA, Ma Bridget, who's the CEO there. He's such an amazing human being. Through and through. Or when you look at me and you're saying all these things, I'm just like, oh, me, I want to be at that level. I want to have that level of self-awareness, self-confidence. And her confidence comes out in the way that she empowers others, you know. So that's where I want to play. That's my platform because I've got so many things I love doing.
Yeah.
And you enjoy doing this. I want to give people like you that platform to be this part, to tap into this part of you so that you can then thrive, you know. So that's what I'm about. So if corporates can invite me to, so we can have a conversation with their people, because part of what my takeaway from the ASABA lunch was, and we were celebrating the people that had passed the exams in 2023.
Nice.
But it was beautiful because the way they organized it was to also acknowledge the fact that you need resilience. And their qualified actuaries were sharing their qualifying journeys. They were talking about how many times they failed. Because again, we think success is a destination and we shouldn't have failure in it. But goodness, Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times, but he's still probably the world's biggest and best inventor. But when you think about the light bulb, you don't think, my gosh, this guy failed 10,000 times, because when you switch it on, it just goes on.
Yeah.
But failure is part of the journey, you know. So to be in a corporate space and be having these conversations, it allows people to be themselves even at work and bring that creativity that we spoke about in the workplace. And if you can show up fully and bring your talent fully in the workplace, the employer wins, you win. And by the time, and you spend 8 hours of your day, 5 days of the week, that's majority of your life there. How sad that you can't be your whole self. How sad that you can't be creative.
And tap into other areas of yourself
and tap
as well.
into other areas
but then
of
you
yourself.
touched on a very interesting point where you speak about the actuarial journey and how it's a lot of striving and people actually do fail before they actually qualify as a fellow. What was your experience and what's your relationship with failure now?
Failure is like a bestie that I use as a reference point of what did I do wrong. See, the actuarial control cycle is one of the most powerful things I've come across in my learning.
Yeah.
And that cycle says you look at the environment, you know, you look at what the problem is, you find a solution. You check if that solution is actually a solution by monitoring that experience. And then if it's not, you come up with a new solution and go back to square one. That's life. Failure is just an indicator that you missed something. There's something in your knowledge or in how you executed that didn't go right. It doesn't mean it's not painful. It's sometimes extremely painful. Sometimes so crushing in terms of your spirit and your drive that you don't want to get up again. But even then, why are you feeling that way? Because it's very important to you. So if we can investigate those emotions and understand why we're feeling in that way, we can then use them as a trampoline to get to that success, you know. So failure right now is a bestie in terms of the fact that, I don't want you. I don't like you, but it's the learning. And the same way when a seed is germinating, it's under soil. It's dark. It's not nice. You're being compressed. But if you trust the process, as I've been told, and again, it's an executive solely from ASABA who said, you need to trust the process. As part of that conversation, you will come out and be in the light and you will thrive. But again, in spring, that might happen. Winter, your leaves might fall off. It's part of it. When spring comes again, it's going to come back up. And if we can see ourselves as seasons, we can view our life as the control cycle, the actual control cycle, then nothing is ever final. And it's always a question of what is the season for?
Yeah.
Is it the season for harvesting? Is it the season for cleaning up? Is it the season for planting? If you can use failure to identify all of those things, then you'll be in sync and you'll be in flow, as opposed to swimming against the current, which is why qualifying was such a strive, you know. And I mean, I'm so grateful I had so many people pouring into me. And I didn't believe in myself. And because I didn't believe, giving up was never an option for some reason.
Yeah.
Because I think that the opportunity to do something else came at varsity when I was failing in varsity. But when I went to Dubai, one of the things I realized is I could do a lot of easier things and make lots of money. But for me, it's the legacy. And I think you have affirmed me in that if I can overcome all of this, become an actuary, then one day a black child is going to look at me and say, if she can do it,
too.
Definitely I can.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. You are a powerhouse and I love it. Now, I'm just wondering, with all this, at what point in your childhood, right, did you actually realize that you wanted to be an actuary?
I think it was grade 11 or grade 10.
Yeah.
When Ntabileng Ludwaba, who is my twin, although we're a year apart, I'm older, came and said, oh, here's this thing called actuarial science. And Ntabileng was one of the MTN sisters, MTN being memory to me and Ntabileng. And who was the smartest of all of us? I think it was pretty obvious in terms of, from a technical perspective, and passing to me was just the one. But then I was like, if I can do this actuarial science thing that everybody says is hard and very few people can do it, then I'm smart. I can show off and say, I am smart. So that's how that journey started. Coincidentally, this girl didn't even end up doing actuarial science, but it was her idea. She now has a mine. She has a mine. She did mining engineering and now owns her own mine. Exactly. And that's the part I was touching on, to say, when you get a new idea, kick it around, see if it works for you. It might not be aligned to you and you might be forcing it and swimming against the current. What we want to do is limit that striving, because you reach your break point. And I've reached it so many times, you know. That's why I'm so excited about the idea of flowing into my own and stepping into my own.
I agree. For me, I feel like part of growth is failing once in a while, because I think when you're too comfortable and everything is going so well, then you have to question if you're actually challenging yourself, because I love to challenge myself. If I'm doing so well all the time, then I'm asking myself, what am I not doing right? Because then it means I'm settling. And I don't like settling. I always have to see what's my next thing that can challenge me. I don't know if it's a pride thing, but I know it's more about, I want to do more. I feel I can give more to myself, to the community, to my family. I'm always looking for what more can I do that can actually allow me to use what has been placed in my hands. Because again, I don't love doing one thing at a time. It definitely is not me.
So you're reminding me of something Tafara Mawandi said, where he said to group of AIM students this July, he said, when God blesses you with so much talent, you need to show up in the world in proportion to that talent. If that talent is teaching preschoolers, do that, because those preschoolers will grow up to be you and I. And you need to do that to the best of your ability. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with sitting down, taking a breath, and doing nothing. You're not a human doing. You're a human being. Being is an essential part of being able to do those things. Mina, personally, I don't want challenges.
You don't.
I am strong enough. They say if it doesn't break you, it makes you stronger. I feel like I'm strong enough. I don't want those things.
You don't need to break.
I don't want those things. If life can be smooth sailing for me, I would take it on. I will go for it. I will go with it. But those challenges do come. I would like to think I'm not actively seeking challenges anymore, because you know what, sometimes I just want to flow and just enjoy being and not always be stressed about chasing and trying to acquire and trying to reach. At some point, I want to reach that plateau and say, whew, thank you. I'm here. I made it. The future is bright without thinking, oh, I didn't do A, B, C, D.
Where you always have this tick box. Honestly, it's okay to take breaks. But also, I think one thing that interests me, I say the actuarial community is dominated by men, I feel. I also think being at the top like you are is dominated by men. So how do you manage as a Black woman? I don't think you're so much as foreign, because I think, like you're saying, you grew up here. But how do you manage to find yourself in that type of environment and to constantly remind yourself that you're actually doing well? Because I think when there's a lot of men at the top, you tend to doubt yourself because not every man is receptive to a woman being at the top.
That is true. And I think until you made that last statement, I was going to give a totally different answer. Because of my upbringing and coming from a tribe that the women are dominating, I didn't feel some of those things you've definitely spoken about until I became chair of the Actuarial Women's Committee. Then I had to ask myself, what is this about? And when somebody said to me a woman should earn less than a man for the same job, because ultimately the disposable income is such that you're going to be bitched. So there's going to be a guy funding you so that at the end of the day, our disposable income is the same.
Sure.
I was like, eh?
You're done.
When somebody then came to the Actuarial department and asked me from the secretary, I was like, when somebody said to me, oh, and your partner allows you to wear those shoes, because I'm wearing my high heels, you know how I rock up at those actual events. I was like, this is a thing. This is a thing. And once I discovered that, I was pushing to say, no, we need to sit on the table. We need to be. But you know what? The world right now is what it is because of where we have come from. Historically, women were supposed to be at home. Like you have said, unless we change the mindsets, not just of women, but of the men. Right now, I'm so fortunate in my role that my boss is like, you are going to be the best version of yourself. That's a man. My previous board, Patrick Ndururi, that man is amazing, but he always wanted me to be the best version of myself. And my boss, Nikibet at Liberty, who introduced me to Patrick Ndururi, was the same. So yes, the same way there's some women who are horrible and there's some women who are nice. As much as this thing is male dominated, for us to get that equality and equity we're looking for, we need to take the men on the journey. Before, I think I probably came across very aggressive, as an aggressive woman. And that was, I think, the confident side of me or the frustrated side of me. Because you can get frustrated when you're experiencing those things. When people are not listening to you simply because you're a woman. When you must just be making tea. It can get frustrating. But if you can take a step back and not be, I'm the woman in the room, to this is what I'm bringing to the table, and show it. There's certainly a lot of men who are saying, who don't even see those things to begin with, you know. So the fact that we think everybody's acknowledging that, oh, the gender gap is there. No, not everybody's acknowledging it. Not everybody's seeing it. It's our responsibility to educate them, because the women who came before us got us here via doing that. They had to maybe become more militant. You know, but the next phase of my life is about smiling. Your Olivia Popes are always serious. Your Mary Jane are always Now, even Mary Poppins wasn't smiling. Me, I want to be
smiling.
I want to be happiness all the time while tackling some of these issues, because you know what? One of the things in this thing, because after being chair of the Actuarial Women's Committee, I then became president of the Association of South African Black Actuarial Professionals. And coming from Zambia and coming to South Africa, I didn't always understand these racial dynamics, but I had to really understand them as the president. And there's a lot of work still to be done, but there's a lot of people wanting to do the work. And there's a lot of people whose mindsets are shifting to enable that. But again, if it's an us versus them, whether it's a gender or a race thing, we're always at war. But if it's a collaborative effort to address what has happened that none of us probably created, but we are either part of perpetuating or fixing. And if we can get them to be on this side in terms of we are collaborating, we're not trying to share a pie that's a certain size. We're saying if we all do this together, we can make the pie bigger. Because when I combine my talent with your talent, it's not just what I can do, it's what we can do. And once we have what we can do, the pie is bigger, in which case there's enough for everyone. So women being on the table doesn't mean there's a space taken for another man. It means we can make the table bigger, that it can accommodate more of us. But for that to happen, some men must go into the kitchen. Some men must go 50-50 in terms of what's happening at the home front. And men enjoy that. There are men that enjoy that, but we're not normalizing that aspect of it. And that's why for me, the next in my life is we're here. There are not a lot of women. What are the women doing out there that are not here? Because there are some structural things either at formative stage, at educational level, high school, primary school, at varsity. There's something happening there. In the corporate world now, they will say, if we get a woman to say, oh, we're going to give you a job in Nigeria, come to Nigeria, or we're going to give you a job in the UK. I'm proudly African, so Kenya or Egypt. A lot of the stance now is that women don't go because they want to stay with their husbands. They have to stay in the home front. If we can understand what's causing that, because the research, when I put it out there in the world that, oh, this is what is happening, they're like, no. Women are very ambitious. They want those roles. So if we can address what's causing them to not be in those roles, then we can solve that problem. Make the pie bigger. Make the table bigger so that the demographics, if it's 50% women and 50% men, let's have 50% women sitting at that table, because it will enable us to make that pie bigger, which will enable house husbands to thrive, housewives to thrive, and the people who are having fun in the corporate world, sitting behind that computer, can do that. Everybody can do what they love if we all just collaborate.
I love it. I feel like you're touching on another topic that we will need you for part 2 because we've run out of time.
Yes.
But thank you so much. I think it's a topic I really want to touch on. You know, I think it's something I'm very passionate about. The one thing you really say that I love is the fact that we need to collaborate and stop fighting. Yeah. Right? Because I think sometimes, I see as women, I think we're probably hurt to some extent. We're angered to some extent, and we find ourselves fighting more than actually showing this is my value. This is what I can offer, and you need it, you know? And we're spending so much time in those arguments of gender equality. And to some extent, I mean, gender equality is good, but I think men and women are powerful in different ways, right? We're not the same, right? We are equal, but we're not the same. And there's certain aspects that we need each other for, you know? So I think it's like you're saying, collaborating, working together, and seeing how we can make the pie bigger, because nobody is taking space for everyone. But thank you so much. It was lovely having you. I loved having the conversation with you. And I think we're going to call you for a part 2.
Oh, call me for part 2, part 3, part 4.
Yes.
If you want a sounding board, I'm here. And thank you for seeing me back then when I didn't even see myself in that way potentially, and calling me here. Continue that, because one day you might be making the next president by encouraging them and affirming them, by seeing them and acknowledging them. So keep up the good work. Continue to pursue your creative side and bring it into your office space. Yes. You'll be surprised the amazing things you're going to do with that day.
I agree. Thank you so much, Memory. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And thank you to our lovely viewers. Thank you for watching. And please do like, share, and subscribe, and follow Memory on... What are your platforms?
I'm everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as Memory Zimba, or my fashion business, Simply Memoir. I'm also on Facebook, So you can find me on all the socials. But if you're not sure where to find me on the socials, get me on LinkedIn and I'll give you a way to follow me everywhere else.
Love it. Thank you and love you, everybody.